in a place where it is appropriate and comfortable for you, please close your eyes and take a few nice, long, slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more light and peace entering the body and mind. With every exhale, feel like you're letting go of all tension in the body, along with anything in the mind that you do not want. Inhaling light and letting go with each and every exhale. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our grove, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. We recognize that this is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it easily and gently burns away everything that is unlike itself, leaving us safe and serene. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a mother and father, a goddess and God. Into this sacred space, we also invite the presence of our angels, our guides, and our teachers. We ask that they join together with us and lead us as we walk upon the way, becoming happier, more peaceful, more gentle, more wise, more prosperous, and more loving people. Thank you very much. Blessed be. I was on Discord yesterday, and I wasn't having the best day. And I started to, for no good reason, badmouth somebody. Just for no good reason. As I do. It's one of my personality traits. And I remember thinking to myself, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on here? Because I was going on about somebody that I haven't really dealt with in decades. And obviously, whatever my problems with this person were not resolved. But in reality, it had nothing to do with that person. I was going through my own stuff. I asked my inner guidance, what's going on? And I got a real clear communication. The first thing was the quote from the New Testament, let you who have no sin cast the first stone. The other thing, even more interestingly, was a glimpse into how the human ego operates. We all are subject to this. We are all victimized by our own egos. And if we don't notice it as it's happening, it can really compound on itself. And what this was for me was I didn't want to deal with what I was dealing with. And so where there was an unresolved issue in a relationship that I had, when that kind of came up, the ego said, yay, let's project onto this person, since you've already got this stuff on this person, let's project on this person. That way, you can get convoluted in your own process now and not heal this other thing either. 2 for the price of 1 with the ego. Not only did I rekindle ancient hurt from before, but it also served as a means by which I was distracted from healing this other thing that I was already on the road to healing. And that's what we do. We take one thing that we're dealing with, and if we either don't want to deal with it or the ego mind wants to distract us, it projects that onto something else. And that if we're not paying attention, we believe in that new projection, and that wastes so much time. And that's the whole goal. Delay our progress. That's the ego's main MO, delay. And that's why we attack. When you attack someone, it's a means by which you delay your progress because you're so involved with that attack and justifying that attack and gathering evidence to support that attack. I can waste weeks, months, years on this resentment, on this grievance that has absolutely nothing to do with me anymore. This is decades old. This person's dead. It's done. Whatever happened is over. We are called on to be aware and conscious when things like that come up and to, as quickly as we can, get to a point of humility within that, not because that makes us better people necessarily, but because that doesn't stymie our progress and we don't waste precious time here. Ultimately, it's true that there is no time, there is no space, there is no distance. As souls, we are eternal. But while we're here in time, it's up to us to use our time for the best possible purpose that we can. We can open ourselves up to being guided, open ourselves up to being taught so that we can optimize our time here. Allowing the ego to project onto the screen of space resentment and grievance in order to avoid, in order to displace, is not the best use of our time. Let's go back to the first thing that my inner guidance flashed on was, let ye who have no sin cast the first stone. You can take that at surface level. So who are you to judge? Then that's true. Who am I to judge? I'm not perfect. Who am I to judge this person? On the surface level, yes, that's true. Who am I to judge? But if we go a little deeper to what that phrase means esoterically, casting a stone is projection. That's what that means. So if you cast stones from your sinfulness or from your own illness, from your own unresolved perspectives, what you're going to get is more illness, more grievance, more problems. Because what we're doing is dissociating from what's going on by projecting outward onto something else so that we're distracted and not healing the real problem. When it says, let you who have no sin cast the first stone, don't think of it so much in terms of don't cast stones, because you can't help it. You're always projecting. You're always projecting. But it's saying project without sin. It's saying project without judgment, project without attacking. If I'm allowing my mind to be healed and used by a higher power, or by my own higher self, if you will, then the projections that I'm making in this world are going to be very different than the projections that I'm making if my ego is trying to dissociate and projecting my own guilt onto other people or my own issues onto other people. It's just a way of delaying. It's a way of immersing ourselves into more and more pain, more and more drama. And when you have pain and drama, it's very distracting and you don't get much done. Nothing really gets accomplished. It's a lot of the angels hanging out and waiting patiently for you to get over yourself so that you can get back to work. At least that's my image of it. Unfortunately, the way that you mortals have set this world up, this is the angels talking to me, the way you mortals have set this world up, you only have a set amount of time and then your opportunity is gone. So if that's how you want to spend your time, Ariel, be my guest. It's a free world. But if you really are here to progress, if you really are here to be helpful, if you really are here to be a healing force, then maybe it's time to rethink things. I've gotten into the habit at the end of my day of looking back over my day, just really going through the day chronologically, just to complete the day. And that's something that I've learned how to do a long time ago. One of my magical teachers called that reverie, where we just go back through our day and complete the day. And if there was some issues in there that we want to complete those issues before we go to sleep. And one thing that I've started doing in that reverie is asking myself, was this helpful? Did I help? Was I helpful to spirit? Did I help anybody out today? Did I make something better? When I was just bad-mouthing somebody, I didn't help anybody. I didn't help one person. There was nothing helpful about that. Rather than sitting there and feeling guilty about that, because I'm sure if you go back through your day, you're going to find plenty of places where you weren't helpful too. I'm not special in that regard. We all have that. But what the magic is not just feeling bad about that and saying, okay, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to resolve not to do that again. No. What we do is we call on that inner guide or whatever you call it. And I say, take this, use it, find something helpful about this. And then what happens is it gets transformed. It can get transformed. And for me, today it was easy for me to understand how to transform it. It's just, oh, great, good lecture material. Let's go with this. This is wonderful. Good. So something good could come out of that. You know what I'm saying? But if I just felt bad about it, or I resolved not to do that again and was down on myself about that, it would have limited effectiveness for my transformation and for my work in the world. I have to go farther than just looking at any bad behavior and say, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Because you know how well that works when the ego gets a hold of something that you're not going to do again, right? You do it again. You just do it again. That's anybody that's tried to quit smoking or tried to quit sugar or tried to quit gossip, just resolving not to do it again is not enough. Instead, what I've found for myself is when I call upon that higher power and say, take this from me and use it for my good. Use it for my good. Then it starts to be transformed. And once it's transformed into something that's helpful, then I notice that I no longer have the craving to do that thing again in the future. I really do complete that thing. That happened to me with smoking. I was a smoker for a long time. And I remember trying to quit smoking and resolving not to smoke, and then feeling guilty every time I had a cigarette. I couldn't figure it out. Finally, I did a spell to quit smoking. And I did the spell, and then I started smoking again. When you bring magic into the equation, you bring that deep mind in the equation, this major thought form has been built that you are a non-smoker and you don't quit. For me, the way that manifested is I got pneumonia. Now, I'm not saying that the spirit gave me pneumonia, but I gave me pneumonia because my deep mind said, no, this does not compute. This does not compute. You said no more smoking and you're smoking. You can't smoke anymore. What's the only way that we can figure this out? Oh yeah, you get pneumonia. So I got pneumonia, which is not something that I ever had. It's not something that's like I'm prone to. It was walking pneumonia, thank goodness. I didn't have to be hospitalized, but I couldn't smoke. I just couldn't. I was just physically incapable of smoking. By the time the pneumonia resolved, the physical addiction was over because that nicotine had been out of my system long enough. And I got it. Don't smoke anymore. I then called on my inner guide to say, please use this for my good. And what that enabled me to have then is not only no more smoking, but I had a really good, true story that I could use to illustrate how magic can work and why when you do certain kinds of spells, you got to be careful about how you do those spells and what sometimes it takes to overcome an addiction and what sometimes it takes to overcome a problem, especially if you're working magic on it. So something wonderful came from the pneumonia. Something wonderful came from the whole drama of me quitting smoking. There's a big difference between just making some sort of a resolution not to repeat negative behavior and just owning it and asking for it to be removed from you and to be used for a higher purpose. The problem that we have is we forget that just because we can't figure out something doesn't mean it can't be done. When I listen to my inner guide, the inner guide says, yeah, of course it doesn't make sense to you. If it made sense to you, you wouldn't be having this problem. It makes sense to me. Why don't you let me take over from here, at least now, until your mind can catch up with mine? How about you let me make this decision for you rather than deciding for yourself? Because every time you decide for yourself, you get back down to square one again, where you feel bad about yourself. It doesn't work. You have negative thoughts about yourself. You feel guilty, and you're always mired in the problem. So instead of trying to figure out how to fix the problem for yourself, why don't you let me do it for you, and then I will teach you how. I will show you how. I will take you through step by step as we're going through the solving of this problem. We're going to do it together, but let me show you how. Let me make these decisions for you because your decisions are still faulty. And that's nothing to feel guilty about. It's nothing to feel bad about, but it is helpful to notice. It's helpful to notice that given my best thinking, this is the best I can do. Whereas if I ask for a higher thinking than what I'm capable of my own, I then can do more. I can accomplish more. I can be more. I can have more. I can do more. If I'm dedicating myself to being helpful, truly helpful, not being a do-gooder, but how can I be of service to Spirit? How can I be of service in any moment? If that's my primary objective, then Spirit can show me how I can be of service. And what I've noticed is that as I am being guided and led as to how I can be of service, a lot of the problems that I bring to Spirit are solved within that context. Just because of how I'm set up here, where I give talks about things, a lot of times what you'll hear is stories from my problems, stories from the things that didn't work for me. That's not because I have special stories. It's just that's how Spirit can use my problems in a way that's helpful rather than what I would do with them, which is either repeat them or use them to beat myself up with. We can't really trust ourselves sometimes. And that's not a negative thought. It's just a very truthful, honest thought. It's actually a very positive thought. Left to my own devices, I can't trust myself to make good choices. And when you tell somebody, oh, just make better choices, you're not helping. If they knew how to make a better choice, they would. Isn't that true for you? If you look back in your life and you made some really stupid-ass mistake, wouldn't you have done better if you knew how? If you knew how to use your mind better, if you knew how to overcome certain kinds of addictions, if you knew how to overcome certain kinds of ego-driven impulses, wouldn't you have done it? Of course you would have. Yes, you would have. Rather than having the pain that ensued because of the wrong decisions that you made. So when you're trying to help somebody and you say, just make better choices, that's not helpful because they know that already. How do I make better choices? That's the question. For me, what I've noticed is the way I've learned to make better choices is to A, notice and recognize when I've made a bad choice by myself, and then B, called on that higher intelligence to come in and undo that choice making for me and to make a decision for me. Spirit doesn't have ego. Ego is by its very nature self-destructive because it's out to prove to us we're bad. It's out to prove to us we're separate. It's out to prove to us that we are the opposite of who we are. So by its very nature, it's going to lead you into bad choices. It's nothing to feel bad about. It's just the way it is. Water's wet, trees are wood, the ego's self-destructive. It's just how it is. No value judgment. It's just what it is. So once you understand that and you can come from that premise, then you realize since I'm an ego-driven being here, at least for the time being, I can't trust my decision making because I'm going to always decide in ways that are self-destructive to me. But I have come to understand that there is a power higher than my ego that is connected to me, that is closer to who I really am as a soul. And I perceive that to be a guide. I perceive that to be an inner guide, an angel, a fairy godmother, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't decide against me. It's on my side. It really wants me to thrive. It really wants me to succeed. It really wants me to be happy in every possible way. So since I can trust that power won't decide against me, and that I know that my ego always decides against me, what I can do is try to remember in the moment when I'm confronted with something to say, I don't understand it. I don't know what any of it is. I don't understand it because I've been poorly taught by my ego all my life. So I'm going to come from the premise that what I see and how I'm reacting to this thing is off the mark. So I don't know how to respond to this properly, but there is a part of my mind that's connected to infinite intelligence, which does know what to do and does know how to respond to it and only wants my good, only wants me happy. And so therefore, I'm going to ask that power, which I call the goddess, but you can call it anything you want, to come through to my inner guide and so that I can be shown and taught step by step what to do and how to do it. And not only so that I can avoid mistakes, but when I make a mistake, rather than trying to justify the mistake, rather than trying to gather more evidence to support the mistake, I'm going to say, I made a mistake. I'm calling on that same power to undo the consequences of that mistake for me, and so that I can decide anew. That's very magical. It's very mystical. It's miraculous how things can just shift and change, and you can actually change the past. You can change the way that you respond to the past, and you can realign yourself with that part of the mind that only wants you happy, only wants your perfection, doesn't want any of this other stuff. When we start to utilize this power that we're talking about today, we understand that it's not so much that we'll never make another mistake. It's just that when we make a mistake, we don't have to just live with that mistake and say that we learned the lesson and then make it again and again. What we do instead is we ask for that power to come in and redecide things for us, make new choices, new decisions, and guide us step by step on how to walk away from this mistake, not only forgiven, which is fine. Yeah, of course you're forgiven, but better off. I learned a great lesson. I have new skills. I've cleaned up a relationship. I've had whatever it was. Only good came out of that. And that's what we want. Only good can come from this. Only good can come from this. But only good can't come from this if we're doubling down on our mistake. So, not to belabor the New Testament, but when Jesus said, go forth and sin no more, that's all it meant. It's just like, yeah, I can fix that for you. Of course I can heal that for you. I can heal that for you. I can heal anything for you. But then you're going to have to make new choices in the future. You're going to have to come back to understanding that you have within you a link to a higher wisdom that's very different than what you're used to using to make choices. It's a very different thing. And for a while at least, you're going to have to slow down, stop, and realize I'm going to assume I'm on the wrong track just because it's me, just because I've always gone down this track before. I'm going to assume this is wrong, and I'm going to ask for guidance. I'm going to ask for it to be right. Now, occasionally what happens is I assume it's wrong, and Spirit comes in and says, no, you're fine. It's great. Yeah, keep going. And so wonderful. Good. Yay, I was right. I was on the right track. But so many other times, it's where you're headed is self-destruction. We don't want you to self-destroy. We want you happy. We want you prosperous. We want you filled with health and life and beauty and all the good, all the blessings of life. Therefore, you're going to have to not decide by yourself anymore. You're going to have to let us decide for you. This is Spirit talking. You're going to have to let us decide for you. And since you're asking, we're here to help you. But you know how that works. We talk about it all the time. Spirit's not going to attack you. To expect divine intervention is folly unless you've asked for it. Unless you've asked for it, then yeah, it's going to be obvious to you. You're going to see it as it's happening. But if you're expecting some angel or being to come swoop in and save you from your own bad decisions, you're going to be waiting a long time because they don't do that. That's not how it works, because that's a form of attack to say, no, you can't think like that. You can't act like that. You can't say those things. You're not allowed. You're not going to get that. You're free to do it as you will. You can say whatever you want. Do whatever you want. You can be as heinous as you like. Be my guest. It's literally a free universe for you to use your mind any way you want, but then you get to deal with the consequences of that. Whereas when you choose again and you make a new choice based on that higher wisdom and you allow those decisions to be made for you on your behalf, not only do you make better choices, perfect choices, but the bad choices that you made are cleaned up for you. That's a great deal. It's a really great deal. And it's worth experimenting. So what I invite you to do is to take a cue from me. The next time you're in a situation where you're like, I'm starting to feel like I really need to justify myself. I'm starting to really feel like I need to pull out some evidence. I'm starting to feel awfully right about this situation. Take a breath and take about 3 or 4 beats and say, I don't know what any of this is. I'm really confused. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to decide. I think I'm stuck. Please help me. And then you invite that presence in to help you and to go into every aspect of this situation, including your past, with it, and to untangle it for you. You allow that to be done for you, and then you're open and receptive in the moment as to what you need to do. So sometimes if you've made a big mistake, you're going to be given assignments one step at a time on your role in cleaning things up. And sometimes you're going to be given steps to take in order to establish new thought patterns. So whatever it is, you're going to be guided. You're not on your own. You're going to be guided. But a lot of that heavy lifting is done for you because you're not in a place yet as a spiritual adept where you can do that. And that's the fast track to becoming a spiritual adept, is to knowing where you don't know, knowing where your weaknesses are. And for me, I know that my weaknesses are pretty significant as a spiritual being because I know where the ego is all alive and well and living in my personality. I get that. And I just have gotten to the point now where I assume I'm going to probably screw that up unless I ask for help. And when I don't do that, I get into trouble and I have to ask for help to go clean it up. So learning to assume that you don't know much, learning to assume that you're not as smart as you think you are, and learning to assume that many of your tendencies are self-destructive is not negative thinking. It's very positive thinking because it puts you in a position of power where you can ask for help and you can either avoid problems altogether or you can clean them up very efficiently and effectively and turn them into something even better. Only good can come from it. Only good can come from it. So it's a very powerful thing to understand that you don't know, but that there is a power within you that does know. And that can, if you give it right of way, undo all of your problems one at a time and set you back on the road to where you are doing very well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.